One of the most striking aspects of this episode is the emotional weight it places on decisions. Cammy's choice to proceed with Galliano's plan isn't just a business decision. It's a statement about her independence and her determination to protect her late husband's legacy. The episode emphasizes that leadership is as much about emotional resilience as it is about strategy. Tommy's frustration, Galliano's calm dominance, and Cammy's assertiveness all combine to create a layered and suspenseful atmosphere. Each scene is charged with anticipation because you know that every choice has a ripple effect, and that the next move could either stabilize the company or shatter it completely. Meanwhile, even minor interactions in episode 6 are loaded with significance. A single glance between characters, a pause before a response, or an unfinished sentence becomes a narrative device that heightens suspense. Cooper notices some of these cues in his world, but his immaturity prevents him from fully understanding them. Tommy, on the other hand, reads them all, which only intensifies his frustration as he realizes he's fighting battles on multiple fronts. And as Galliano subtly manipulates both sides, the audience is left on edge, knowing that the characters are playing into a web of control they barely recognize. By the end of the section, the stakes are not just high, they're personal, professional, and emotional all at once, leaving a sense of anticipation for the conflicts that are about to explode. As episode 6 pushes forward, the tension in MTEX shifts from subtle cracks to open fractures. Cammy's insistence on moving ahead with Galliano's strategy puts her directly at odds with Tommy, and the friction between them becomes impossible to ignore. Every scene where they interact carries the weight of unspoken conflict. Tommy's frustration is palpable. He's no longer just concerned about the company's survival. He's watching the person he trusts most make decisions that could unravel everything they've built. And Cammy, fueled by emotion and determination, refuses to back down. She's not just rejecting Tommy's advice, she's asserting control, drawing a line that Tommy can no longer cross. That moment marks a turning point in the season, because the dynamic between them has fundamentally shifted. Trust, once unshakable, now feels fragile, and the audience can sense that the consequences of this rift will ripple throughout the series. Galliano, meanwhile, continues to operate like a quiet storm. He doesn't push, he simply positions himself at the center of the action. When obstacles arise, he's there with a solution, making his involvement seem indispensable. His calm, measured demeanor contrasts sharply with Tommy's urgency and Cammy's emotional drive, and that contrast only amplifies his influence. What's terrifying is how little the other characters realize they're being maneuvered. Galliano's manipulation is precise. He doesn't need to dominate. He just needs to subtly shift perceptions, sound out, and allow others to make decisions that play directly into his hands. By the midpoint of this section, it's clear. He's no longer just a player, he's a force that's redefining the rules of the game. On the personal side, Cooper's world is moving at a breakneck pace. Mirroring the chaos in MTEX, his relationship with Ariana escalates rapidly, with wedding plans progressing before either of them fully grasps the gravity of the commitment. Cooper's lack of experience and his tendency to act impulsively are highlighted repeatedly, creating a tension between desire and responsibility. Tommy's guidance, though well-meaning, often feels like a lecture which Cooper struggles to absorb. Still, there's growth in his missteps. Each challenge exposes him to the harsh realities of adulthood, forcing him to balance ambition with careful thought. Episode 6 doesn't let him off easy. Every choice has immediate consequences, and the weight of those consequences drives his character development forward in a way that's both engaging and suspenseful. The episode also leans heavily into the theme of perception versus reality. Cammy believes she's making bold, independent decisions, but Galliano's influence subtly skews those decisions in his favor. Tommy sees the reality of the situation but lacks the power to enforce it. Cooper thinks he's in control of his personal and professional life, but he's constantly reminded of how quickly things can spiral. Every interaction in episode 6 is layered, with subtext driving suspense as much as dialogue. Pauses, glances, and offhand remarks carry meaning far beyond their surface, keeping the audience on edge, waiting for the inevitable fallout. The suspense isn't built through sudden action but through the careful, deliberate unraveling of relationships and alliances. By the end of this section, the pressure inside MTEX is nearly unbearable. Cammy and Tommy's growing divide, Galliano's subtle manipulation, and Cooper's reckless acceleration toward adulthood converge into a perfect storm. The episode meticulously sets up the stakes, making it clear that choices made in the next few hours will have repercussions that echo long after. The suspense is relentless, the emotional weight heavy, and the anticipation for what comes next is intense, every character is on the edge, and the audience can feel the tension like a low hum, building toward a crescendo that promises to reshape the entire series landscape. Episode 6 closes with the tension inside MTEX reaching a boiling point, leaving every character teetering on the edge. Cammy has fully embraced Galliano's plan, and her confidence in her decisions signals a shift in the company's power dynamic that Tommy can no longer influence. The emotional and professional bond between Tommy and Cammy is stretched to breaking, and it's painfully clear that their alliance may never return to what it once was. Tommy's warnings and careful strategies, once the backbone of MTEX's stability, are now sidelined, leaving him in a position where he watches events unfold without control. His frustration and helplessness are palpable, giving the audience a sense of dread. You know that consequences are coming, and there's little he can do to prevent them. Galliano, calm and composed, remains the puppet master of the hour. Every move he makes is strategic, designed to deepen his influence while widening the gap between Cammy and Tommy. He presents solutions, offers guidance, and subtly undermines Tommy's authority, all while maintaining the image of reliability and competence. By doing so, he becomes indispensable to Cammy, and the audience sees clearly how expertly he manipulates both sides. There's a chilling quality to his calmness. He doesn't force anyone to act. He simply positions them to act exactly how he wants, and the results speak for themselves. By the episode's end, his role as the silent manipulator is undeniable, and it's evident that his influence will only grow stronger in future episodes. Meanwhile, Cooper faces the consequences of his fast-paced decisions in both love and business. The whirlwind of his relationship with Ariana has escalated to the point where adult responsibilities collide with his impulsive nature. He's confronted with moments that demand maturity, yet his instinctive reactions remind the audience that he's still learning. Tommy's advice continues to guide him, but the lessons come hard and fast. Cooper's growth is being tested in real time, and the episode makes it clear that mistakes are inevitable. Yet even in his struggles, there's hope. He's learning resilience, accountability, and how to navigate high-stakes situations under pressure. By the end of the hour, Cooper's story feels like a parallel to the larger tension within MTEX, showing that both business and personal life demand growth, patience, and awareness. Episode 6 also highlights the subtleties of human interaction. As a key driver of suspense, every glance, pause, or unfinished conversation carries weight, revealing unspoken thoughts and intentions. The audience becomes acutely aware of the fragility of trust and the power of perception. Cammy's determination, Tommy's caution, Galliano's manipulations, and Cooper's impulsiveness all collide in a way that makes every scene feel consequential. Even minor interactions are imbued with meaning, and each character's response has ripple effects that promise to affect the storyline in profound ways. It's this intricate layering of tension, emotion, and strategic maneuvering that keeps viewers on edge, fully invested in the unfolding drama. By the conclusion of episode 6, the stage is set for chaos, transformation, and confrontation in the upcoming episodes. Cammy's boldness, Galliano's subtle control, Tommy's frustration, and Cooper's reckoning with responsibility create a perfect storm of suspense, emotion, and anticipation. Alliances have shifted, trust has fractured, and the future of MTEX, along with the personal growth of key characters, hangs in the balance. Episode 6 doesn't just advance the story, it reshapes it, leaving the audience questioning who will survive the coming challenges and who will be forced to face the consequences of their choices. The tension lingers long after the episode ends, ensuring that viewers are left hungry for the next chapter in this gripping, high-stakes saga. Episode 6 doesn't just raise the stakes, it quietly redraws the power lines. Episode 6 of Landman opens with tension hanging in the air, the kind you can feel before anyone even says a word. The cracks we saw forming last episode are no longer subtle, and the balance of power inside MTEX feels shakier than ever. Tommy walks into this episode already on the defensive. He knows he's losing ground with Cammy, and worse, he knows Galliano is the reason. You can see it in the way Tommy moves now, more cautious, more guarded, like a man who realizes the room he once controlled no longer belongs to him. Meanwhile, Cammy is operating on pure instinct. She's not just trying to save a company anymore, she's trying to protect her husband's legacy. And that emotional weight is starting to override logic right from the start. The episode makes it clear that Cammy and Tommy are no longer aligned. Conversations feel shorter, colder, and more transactional. Where Tommy once advised, he now warns. Where Cammy once listened, she now decides, and that shift is dangerous. Tommy continues pushing the reality of what accepting Galliano's money actually means not just on paper but in how the company will be viewed by regulators, competitors, and law enforcement. He keeps hammering the same point, money like that always comes with invisible strings. But Cammy is done hearing about consequences. To her, every alternative feels like surrender, and she refuses to be the woman who lost everything by playing it's safe. Galliano, on the other hand, is moving like someone who knows the ending before everyone else does. He never raises his voice. He never rushes. He just keeps positioning himself closer to Cammy while quietly stepping over Tommy's shadow. Every interaction he has feels intentional, almost calculated. Like he's not just solving problems but replacing people. He doesn't argue with Tommy anymore. He simply disagrees, calmly, confidently, as if Tommy's authority has already expired. And that might be the most unsettling part of this episode. The fact that Galliano doesn't need to force his way in. He's being invited while all of this is happening at the top. Cooper's storyline continues to mirror the chaos in a much more personal way. Cooper is trying to prove he's grown, trying to convince everyone, including himself, that he's ready for adult responsibilities. But episode 6 keeps putting him in situations that expose just how unprepared he still is. The job, the engagement, the expectations, it's all moving faster than he can process. And even when he makes the right decisions, they feel rushed, like he's chasing stability instead of building it. The pressure is starting to show, and you can tell he's beginning to realize that confidence alone doesn't equal competence. What makes this episode work so well is how quietly everything escalates. There's no single explosive moment at the beginning. Instead, the tension builds through looks, pauses, and conversations that don't quite finish. Every character seems to be standing at the edge of a choice they don't fully understand. Yet, Tommy feels it, Cammy ignores it, Galliano exploits it, and Cooper stumbles straight toward it. By the end of this first stretch of the episode, one thing becomes painfully clear. Episode 6 isn't about immediate consequences. It's about setting up losses that won't be felt until it's too late. As episode 6 unfolds, the power struggle within MTEX escalates into something almost tangible, like an invisible weight pressing down on everyone in the room. Cammy's decisions are no longer cautious, they are bold, bordering on reckless. She's moving forward with Galliano's plan despite Tommy's repeated warnings. And it's not just about money anymore. It's about control. Cammy is asserting herself in a way we haven't seen before. She's no longer willing to take advice, no matter how sound. And every meeting becomes a battlefield of subtle tension. Tommy, who once held the room effortlessly, is now sidelined. He warns, he advises, he tries to persuade, but Cammy has already made her choice, and it's Galliano she's listening to. Meanwhile, Galliano continues to manipulate the situation with the calm precision of a chess master. He doesn't yell, he doesn't pressure. He simply inserts himself into conversations at the right moments, steering outcomes without anyone noticing until it's already done. When Tommy attempts to draw a line, Galliano sidesteps it effortlessly, presenting himself as the solution to problems Tommy is still trying to solve. And the terrifying part is, Galliano doesn't even need to lie. He simply reframes the truth to make Tommy look cautious, slow, or even outdated, while Galliano appears decisive and reliable. Every move he makes is calculated to widen the gap between Cammy and Tommy. And by the midpoint of the episode, that gap is already threatening to become a canyon. On Cooper's side, the consequences of his impulsiveness start to hit hard. The wedding plans with Ariana accelerate at lightning speed, and while he's excited, there's an underlying panic bubbling to the surface. Cooper hasn't had the time to fully consider the responsibilities he's taking on. And episode 6 makes sure we feel that tension. He's thrust into adult decisions, balancing work, love, and family, and every choice feels like a potential misstep. Tommy tries to guide him, but even the lessons Tommy imparts are heavy with warnings that Cooper doesn't always want to hear. It's a reminder that growing up isn't just about ambition. It's about understanding the consequences before they land on your doorstep. The episode also cleverly emphasizes the fragility of trust. Cammy's growing reliance on Galliano is contrasted against Tommy's attempts to protect her, and it creates a layered emotional landscape. When she refuses to heed Tommy's advice, it's not just a business disagreement, it's personal. She's asserting independence, yes, but she's also sending a message that Tommy no longer holds sway over her decisions. And for Tommy, that's more than frustrating, it's painful. He's watching someone he respects, maybe even cares for deeply, slowly slip out of his influence, and there's nothing he can do to stop it. That tension, subtle but ever present, drives the episode forward in a way that makes each scene feel like it's teetering on a knife's edge. Even the smaller moments in episode 6 carry weight. Conversations that seem casual are loaded with Subtext, glances, pauses, and unfinished sentences speak louder than words. Tommy notices the shifts, Cooper struggles to adapt, Cammy acts with quiet determination, and Galliano moves like a ghost among them, unseen but always effective. The beauty of this episode is how it layers these tensions. You don't need a dramatic explosion to feel the pressure, it's in every decision, every glance, every choice that could tip the balance one way or another. By the end of this section, it's clear that episode 6 isn't just progressing the story, it's reshaping the landscape entirely. Nothing and no one will be the same by the time the credits roll. Asterisk asterisk, by the midpoint of episode 6, the tension inside MTEX reaches almost unbearable levels. Cammy is now fully invested in Galliano's plan. Moving forward with a confidence that borders on defiance, she's no longer hesitant or uncertain. Every decision she makes feels deliberate, like she's staking her claim as the one in charge. Tommy, however, is still trying to hold the pieces together. He knows the risks Galliano brings to the table, and he's painfully aware that Cammy doesn't share his caution. Every attempt to redirect her, to warn her about the unseen consequences, is met with polite dismissal, or worse, outright defiance. It's heartbreaking because Tommy's actions are not motivated by ego, they are motivated by protection, both for Cammy and the company. But in the high-stakes world of MTEX, protection often looks like interference. And that's exactly how Cammy perceives it now. Galliano's manipulation becomes more visible in this section of the episode. He carefully positions himself as the indispensable problem solver, stepping in just as challenges appear, and presenting solutions that make Tommy's careful planning seem slow or obsolete. It's a masterclass in subtle power plays. The way he talks to Tommy is almost casual, but the subtext is lethal. Galliano knows exactly how to undermine trust without confrontation. Meanwhile, he's whispering reassurances and promises to Cammy, further solidifying his grip over her decisions. By now, it's clear that Galliano isn't just a player in the game, he's actively rewriting the rules. And he's doing it while everyone else is distracted by their own priorities. On the personal front, Cooper's storyline intensifies as well. The whirlwind engagement with Ariana continues, and while there's excitement and passion, there's also a growing undercurrent of panic. Cooper is being forced to confront the reality of adult responsibilities faster than he can process. Episode 6 puts him in situations that test his judgment constantly. Whether it's navigating the wedding logistics, managing his job responsibilities, or understanding the implications of his personal choices. Tommy's warnings about moving too fast echo in the background, but Cooper's youth and impulsiveness make it hard for him to truly internalize the lessons. And yet, there's progress. Even in his mistakes, he's learning. Every misstep is a reminder that experience cannot be rushed, no matter how confident you feel in the moment. One of the most striking aspects of this episode is the emotional weight it places on decisions. Cammy's choice to proceed with Galliano's plan isn't just a business decision. It's a statement about her independence and her determination to protect her late husband's legacy. The episode emphasizes that leadership is as much about emotional resilience as it is about strategy. Tommy's frustration, Galliano's calm dominance, and Cammy's assertiveness all combine to create a layered and suspenseful atmosphere. Each scene is charged with anticipation because you know that every choice has a ripple effect, and that the next move could either stabilize the company or shatter it completely. Meanwhile, even minor interactions in episode 6 are loaded with significance. A single glance between characters, a pause before a response, or an unfinished sentence becomes a narrative device that heightens suspense. Cooper notices some of these cues in his world, but his immaturity prevents him from fully understanding them. Tommy, on the other hand, reads them all, which only intensifies his frustration as he realizes he's fighting battles on multiple fronts. And as Galliano subtly manipulates both sides, the audience is left on edge, knowing that the characters are playing into a web of control they barely recognize. By the end of the section, the stakes are not just high, they're personal, professional, and emotional all at once, leaving a sense of anticipation for the conflicts that are about to explode. As episode 6 pushes forward, the tension in MTEX shifts from subtle cracks to open fractures. Cammy's insistence on moving ahead with Galliano's strategy puts her directly at odds with Tommy, and the friction between them becomes impossible to ignore. Every scene where they interact carries the weight of unspoken conflict. Tommy's frustration is palpable. He's no longer just concerned about the company's survival. He's watching the person he trusts most make decisions that could unravel everything they've built. And Cammy, fueled by emotion and determination, refuses to back down. She's not just rejecting Tommy's advice, she's asserting control. drawing a line that Tommy can no longer cross. That moment marks a turning point in the season, because the dynamic between them has fundamentally shifted. Trust, once unshakable, now feels fragile, and the audience can sense that the consequences of this rift will ripple throughout the series. Galliano, meanwhile, continues to operate like a quiet storm. He doesn't push, he simply positions himself at the center of the action. When obstacles arise, he's there with a solution, making his involvement seem indispensable. His calm, measured demeanor contrasts sharply with Tommy's urgency and Cammy's emotional drive, and that contrast only amplifies his influence. What's terrifying is how little the other characters